Good evening. Welcome to the planning board meeting of August 29th. We need to start first by mentioning there's been a change, actually a correction. And Melinda, would you like to make that correction?
Sure. There was a public hearing notice for 12 Barrows Road that was published in the paper. And it was advertised to be on tonight's agenda. However, that's a mistake. It's going to be on the next agenda, which is September 12th. It's going to be newly advertised in next week's paper, and abutters who are notified have the correct date.
Did you all hear the address is changing? I hope that doesn't inconvenience anybody here. Okay. So we'll go forward. The first thing on every agenda is public comment.
Charlotte, I think they didn't hear.
12 Barrows Road.
I heard that. Can you just increase the volume of all the microphones?
They're for TV only, so it's,
I don't think that I can. I would if I could, but I'll raise my voice for as long as I can. Yeah, or you can sit up front.
no one likes to sit up front, Charlotte.
Nevertheless. So, public comment. Is there anyone who's here who wants to speak on a subject that's not on the agenda? Yes. Bob.
Hi, Bob Leary. You've probably all seen this in the Enterprise about the rail trail.
Yeah.
And we received a letter from the Cape Rail, Inc. So I'd like to address some of the things in this advertisement for the Bourne Rail Trail. Everybody agrees that it's a great thing. I mean, we all want to see this rail trail extended. However, when we were on the local comprehensive committee, we looked at keeping that spur as an integral part of any coastal resiliency package that we might put together. If you have a major storm here that wipes out a lot of homes, where are we going to stage things? We would probably stage things out at the base. You would bring in FEMA trailers, all kinds of materials, construction materials and all that. Much cheaper and more efficient by rail. You could bring in hundreds of trailers by train as opposed to bringing them in one at a time by truck. So we always looked at that as a major component of any coastal resiliency plan. And they said that only $20 million is going to be, or $20 million in federal funding is in hand, depending on pulling up the tracks. Well, most of that money is going to go to pull up the tracks. So, public interest is best served by a multi-use track. I think keeping the track in its current use is and adds to the service to the public myself. Completing this trail is a great thing. It's a critical vision for the future for bicyclists and recreation and commuting opportunities, things like that. I totally agree with that. It says that it takes cars off the roads, improves safety for all. Well, cyclists drive to all the parking spots to get on the bike trail, so it really doesn't take a whole lot of cars off the road. Removing the track will only add 4 to 9 trucks per day to the roadway. I disagree with that because that equates to hundreds, if not thousands, of trucks over the course of a year. There is no public use of the track. It's only used for for-profit companies. So aren't the roads and highways. They're used by private companies all the time for transporting goods. So what's the big deal with that? Operation of the track and associated transportation is subsidized by the taxpayers, so isn't the construction and maintenance of a bike trail. The 4 Upper Cape Towns only revenue from operation of the track and transfer station is approximately $20K per year, so you just want to throw $20K a year away? I don't. There is no credible plan for use of the Falmouth secondary for commuter rail. It will never happen. You don't know. We look at it as something for emergency use. If we need a lot of materials to come over the bridge, it's the most efficient way of doing it. And as far as it being heavy industrial use for environmental and public safety, think of all the trash trucks that would have to replace the trash train and all the trash that they would leave along the side of the road, plus the number of vehicles, plus the fact that there's a shortage of truck drivers too, not to mention that. So I would like us as a planning board to put this on the agenda for a discussion, because I would like to have a letter drafted and sent to different representatives in favor of not pulling up the tracks, that we need to keep these tracks. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board on an item not on the agenda? And thank you, Bob. When we get to the agenda part, you might want to
Yep.
repeat your request. Okay. Next, minutes, Paul.
Madam Chair, excuse me, Madam Chair, I recommend approval of the minutes of August 8th, 2023.
Second discussion? Pat?
I second it.
Seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we'll move on. First on our agenda for business, we've got an approval not required, an A&R for David Zenga. A perimeter plan showing one lot located at 0 Eagle Lane, filed August 15th. Who will be speaking for that?
We don't need to, can we just vote?
Just take it.
There's really no need.
I move endorsement.
If no one wishes to speak to it, we will.
And I'll second.
And it's seconded?
Well. In the memos that you sent out, it seemed to me, I can't find it here, but did you send one to the building commissioner
For the A&R?
for the A&R
No.
and for the determination of access?
The determination of access is a draft letter, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a conflict there between the A&R and the determination of access? No?
So the
Oh.
previous A&R there was, but what we've discovered is that covenant that was attached to the A&R in 1982 was done incorrectly.
Yeah.
So this applicant is filing a perimeter plan, which is before you tonight for endorsement.
Okay.
That second part of the process for that applicant will be the determination, which is later on the agenda.
Okay, I thought I saw a conflict between the two, but I guess not. Okay, thanks.
No, there's a slight difference. So Pat, do you want to say again?
I second it.
Um,
Jim moved it.
Endorse without?
We just endorse these.
Without
And they-
regard.
Without
So-
regard.
Without regards, right, that's our standard, we just endorse the plan with nothing to do whether it's buildable or not, that goes to the building department.
I
That's our
just wanted you to
standard.
say that.
Okay.
And it's been seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
That takes care of that, Mr. Zenga. Next, we have, the applicant is Michael Galasso. We need to reopen a hearing on a special permit application for parking within 5 feet of a property line at 545 Main Street. Who will be speaking for the applicant?
Madam Chair, just for public notice.
Oh, Paul, the notice?
You're taking this out of order.
No.
No.
I have it next, Michael Galasso.
Okay.
Your book's just wrong.
So you're going to switch them in your book.
I don't have it. Oh, here it is.
64
Notice of this
butters.
hearing was published on 8/11/2023, and 64 butters were sent a notice by regular mail.
So we'll hear from the applicant and any member of the public who wishes. Mr. Ahmed?
Madam Chairman, members of the board, of course, I'm Bob Ament. I'm a Falmouth attorney, and I represent the applicant. This special permit request to allow parking to be within 5 feet of the property line has, of course, been discussed by the board considerably previously. And the board, at one point a few weeks ago, was ready to request a positive decision to be drafted by the town planner. The hearing has been reopened because there was a revision to the plan. That revision added 2 more spaces at the back of the property along the property line. I guess I could show you where those are. One of the spaces is here, and then the space is moved down, and we were able to pick up another space. And of course, maximizing the parking on site was something that was desirable. Now, on August 15th of this month, the board issued its site plan review decision, really covering all the issues that would go into the issuance of a special permit. And I'd like to note for the record, and include in the record, the observation that this project has been approved under Mr. Cod through site plan review. And when the special permit application was initially filed, this was not being presented as a Mr. Cod project. It isn't clear to me that a special permit would be required if it's a Mr. Cod project and it's been approved under Mr. Cod. There are a number of reasons for that. I've actually discussed that quite a bit previously in connection with the issue of whether a special permit is required from the Board of Appeals for this particular Mr. Cod project. By the way, we have filed for that application to the Board of Appeals, but also inform the Board of Appeals of our position that a special permit shouldn't be required. In any case, I'm delighted to have the Planning Board in this case issue a special permit, as I expect it will, but I do want the record to note that we reserve the rights to take the position, should we ever need to, that a special permit actually is not required for this Mr. Cod project, even a special permit from the Planning Board for the parking, because the parking is a pre-existing non-conforming condition, and I believe that the language of the Mr. Cod bylaw specifically addresses nonconformances and allows the Planning Board to approve alteration to them as long as they aren't substantially more detrimental. But having said that, the Planning Board generally has the authority to allow parking to be within 5 feet of a property line. And in this case, it's most appropriate that the Planning Board do allow that. The parking in essentially the same layout on existing paved areas up to the property line served for many decades the 120-bed nursing home, a nursing home that not only had 120 beds but 80 employees. And to our knowledge, there was never a complaint about the fact that the parking was within 5 feet of the property line. The parallel parking along the east side, that is along here, is right up against the property line of the adjoining commercial use. There's a motel there, and it's separated by a chain link fence, and the motel actually has parking right on the other side of that fence, also within 5 feet of the property line. The parking on the south side of the lot is heavily screened by existing mature vegetation, and a new stockade fence is proposed to be installed to further screen the parking from residential uses in the rear. There are 22 spaces that are within 5 feet of the property line, but it's entirely within area that's already paved, and those spaces are important for the success of this important project, for the successful rehabilitation of the property for year-round affordable housing and for other accommodations that will address the critical need for lodging for temporary workers, students, researchers, and others. None of the immediate abutters to the parking along the property lines have, to our knowledge, submitted any objection to that parking. And the redevelopment of this property, which includes that use of that existing parking, will advance a number of purposes enumerated in the zoning bylaw, including encouraging housing for people of all incomes, and conserving the value of the land, not only this land, but abutting properties, and preventing the blight which eventually occurs when properties are not occupied and used. So we think that the board should grant a special permit, as it has been prepared to do. this request, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak on this application? Could you please come forward?
Hi, my name is Maureen Lipscomb-Maker. I'm the trustee manager at Pondview. And I wanted to know, I know that our legal representation, Attorney Kirk, sent a letter. Did that get circulated? And I know in the past meeting you had read that. Were you planning on reading that, or would you like me to read it?
I wasn't planning on reading the entire thing, but the whole board has it.
Mm-hmm.
If you wish to read it, you may.
Okay, just certain highlights of that. I'm certainly, Attorney Kirk couldn't be here, and I'm certainly not a lawyer, so I would feel more comfortable reading his words. Is that acceptable to you?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Dear Jed, I guess it went to Jed, on behalf of the trustees and unit owners of the Pondview condominium, I would like to place on the record of these proceedings the opinion that under the factual circumstances of this project, it would exceed the authority of the planning board to issue a special permit to allow mixed-use parking within 5 feet of the property line where the property line is located in a residential district. Next paragraph talks about just sending it to all of you. I had raised this issue in prior correspondences dated July 10th, and Bob Ament responded on behalf of the applicant in correspondences dated July 11th, 2023. The first sentence of 240-7.5F 2H relates to building setbacks from property lines located within a mixed residential and commercial overlay district. That is not an issue in this application, and I believe Bob Ament's focus on the location of the building is misplaced. The issue in this case is governed by the second sentence of paragraph H, which relates to the separation of proposed mixed uses from abutting residentially zoned property. That sentence reads, if the new mixed-use building abuts residentially zoned property, then a 20 side and rear setback is required to separate mixed use from residential use. The bylaw does not anticipate that all future mixed uses will be located exclusively in new buildings. The bylaw most certainly anticipates and intends that existing buildings will also be the location for new mixed uses. Clearly, the use of the word new does not refer exclusively to new buildings, but to new mixed uses within new or existing buildings, which abut residentially zoned property, such as in this case here. With respect to the new mixed uses which are occurring on land which abuts residentially zoned property, the bylaw specifically requires a 20-foot setback to create a buffer between the proposed mixed use and the residential zone. Provisions of this nature are commonly used and intended to preserve residential values and prevent the encroachment of other uses into residential areas. Parking is an integral and essential aspect of the proposed mixed use and cannot occur within 20 feet of the adjacent residential district. I have attached a copy of the site plan which shows proposed mixed-use parking to be located not only within 20 feet of the abutting residential district, but actually in the residential district. A decision granting the requested special permit would exceed the authority of the board. And then he had attached this picture showing what he had said to me. This orange line shows that it actually, the property line actually cuts right through that. So with that being said, I am certainly not professing to be a lawyer. I'm a registered nurse. I'm a layperson, and I'm just myself and meeting with him and all of us meeting with him and then also looking at this and coming to many of the meetings, I'm a little confused because I've heard quite a bit of the COD and that you were very much, it sounds wonderful and it's very much that, but I'm myself concerned as a layperson that that specifically says 20 feet and already you're going to the 5 feet. And to me as a layperson, in accordance with his letter, seems I'm not understanding that. As he said, parking is thought to be part of a mixed residential use, therefore it should be that the parking can't be within 20 feet. As I said again, the district line cuts through the lot line, and I'm going to let Bill talk a little bit more about that. But if for some reason this didn't go through, then it's kind of a mixed thing in that then there's not enough parking again, and we're back to that issue. So their proposal wouldn't have enough parking for all of what they're proposing for residents. So I'm saying from a layman person, we're talking a lot about the COD, but yet you're asking to not go with what the COD and do a special permit to do something different. And that is very confusing to a layperson as to why is it that you already need to change that. And I'm going to let Bill speak because he represents, as a business owner there who abuts, and how it affects also the owners of the property.
Thank you.
How are you? Thank you. So, as I told you before, I spoke before in front of you all that I've been in that location since 2007. Where I sit at my desk, to my right, directly there is the nursing home. And I don't even know, I'd like to know, have you done a traffic study there at all? I mean, because there's so much congestion there, and I don't know if people realize that, how bad it is, and it affects my customers getting into my place. It also affects my laborers going out to jobs, getting out of there. It's terrible. I mean, we have, again, as I said before, we have the gas station, we have the Walmart, we have that Vineyard Vines that you approved, where they have apartments up there, they have tractor trailers delivering to there, to the gas station, to Walgreens, to Dunkin' Donuts. It's a mess. I don't think this is what Falmouth really wants. I don't think the majority of the people even know that this is gonna be like this, but I mean, where are all these people gonna park? We're not being realistic that there's no way we're gonna be able to accommodate all them cars, and they're surely not gonna park in my parking lot. I mean, if it comes down to that you approve this, maybe they want to purchase a automatic gate to keep people out of our parking lot, because that parking lot's for my tenants and also for my customers. And we just don't have the parking as we do downtown here in Falmouth. And it's a real concern of mine with all this congestion with the traffic. And I just don't understand how you could even think about allowing this. It's a great idea, but it's the wrong place to put this place. So, I mean, I have on my phone, I could show you that I was trying to leave Shore Street, from Shore Street to my office, which is, maybe 1,000, 2,000 yards. It took me like 10 minutes, 15 minutes to get there. This is gonna create, and now you have that other building that you're building there with 300 units, I understand. Wait, when people start parking there. When you have the nursing home, and you have all the patients, as Attorney Met said, their patients, they didn't have cars there. The employees had cars, and maybe the people that visited. And I can personally tell you, again, my office is right here, the window behind me, Walgreens is right there. I often people would park there and walk over to the nursing home, which is not fair to Walgreens. Walgreens is a pretty busy place. So, I mean, I think and wish you would do a traffic study and see how bad it is there before you even consider this. It's not fair to me and my customers and and everybody else in this town. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
We hear your concerns. Is there any member of the board that would like to respond? No? I would like to respond.
Go ahead.
There are pluses and minuses to being on Main Street. I'm sure you knew that when you chose it, and we're aware of that. And I'm sorry that it's concerned you so much. But as to whether or not the bylaw, the 20-foot setback, applies to buildings, I believe. And that's the belief of the planning office, and I believe our legal counsel, isn't that right?
We did not consult with legal counsel on that, but the bylaw is pretty clear, in my opinion, that it applies to buildings.
Right, it's about buildings. It's not about parking uses. And that's the way it has been applied now for years without consideration of parking. Just so you know, this isn't invented for your situation. It's just the way it has been. It's about buildings. So thank you.
Okay.
Is there any other member of the public who wants to comment? Of the board? No. At our request, or Jed, did you wish to speak?
I was only going to make a further point about that setback issue, and I'll just read that sentence carefully so that the folks at home and as well as in the audience can hear me. And it says, if the new mixed-use building abuts residentially zoned property. And I think that's a key phrase because the next property would be the property in question for which it abuts. So in Attorney Kirk's letter, and not on the screen, but in his letter, he draws the line between the subject property. And I think what the bylaws language is trying to say is that when this property abuts another property, there's a setback, not where the zone cuts through the single property. So hopefully I'm explaining that clearly, but.
Yeah, it's not unusual to have one parcel in two different zones.
Correct, correct.
So,
And I
More
think,
succinctly said, that was really useful.
yes.
Okay, good. Then I think we're ready to move on. At our request, the planning board provided a draft motion that it has replaced at the last moment, but I think that it's substantially the same. Oh, first, we'll need to close the hearing,
I
sorry.
move that we close the hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Pat. The hearing is closed. The draft motion. And we have had a replacement that's substantially the same, I think. I want to show you first the draft motion. It's 4 pages. It's very long. And much of it covers territory, nearly all of it, that was covered when we approved the site plan at our last meeting. So it's 4 pages. And what we'd like to try, we often get long findings, and they're really for purposes of the record years later, but they're difficult for people at home on TV to understand, and they're hard even for us listening to it going along. It's just difficult to follow. So tonight we're going to try a new way and see how it works, and we might be adopting it if it works reasonably well, of reading the parts that really clearly identify what property we're talking about and about the gist of what the finding is, the really important parts, and then we'll ask the record to include the entire finding, the entire motion, so that it will be on the record. We're just not going to speak it aloud. Okay, so, for which I need my reading glasses.
Charlotte, may I interrupt a moment?
Yes.
Because I'd like to let the people who are here know that if they want to have a full copy, they can get it from the planning office.
Ah, good point. Right. And chances are the abutters who've been so concerned will want a full copy, other abutters might, and certainly the people whose property is being discussed will have one if they don't already. So the motion is that the planning board vote to approve the application of Michael Galasso under Article 14, General Regulations, and grant a special permit pursuant to Section 240-14.15B of the zoning bylaw to allow parking within 5 feet of a property line as part of the redevelopment of the former Royal Falmouth Nursing and Rehabilitation Center located at 545 Main Street, as depicted on a plan that was correctly drawn and submitted. Among the findings that I think really are outstanding, it's important to know that the site plan review decision issued by this planning board on August 15, 2023, the project has been permitted as a mixed-use development under the Mixed Residential and Commercial Overlay District, commonly called Mr. COD, within 26 residential dwelling units with 1-year leases, 45 commercial accommodation units rented for 30 days, for a combined total of 71 residential dwelling units and commercial accommodations units, and a 24-seat restaurant. The rest we've heard before. And it does not really pertain exactly to anything except the site plan. About the parking within 5 feet of a property line, substantially as shown on the reference plan, served the 120-bed nursing home on the property for many decades, and the board is not aware of any reported adverse impact on neighboring properties. The parallel parking along the east side of the lot abuts commercial property that has parking within 5 feet of the property line of the subject property, separated by chain link fencing. Meanwhile, the parking along the south side of the lot is screened by mature vegetation, and a new stockade fence will be installed along that line to further create a separation from the residential uses. The parking layout as proposed, including 23 spaces within 5 feet of a property line, is entirely within the area that is already paved. The spaces within 5 feet of a property line will help to make successful the rehabilitation of the property for year-round affordable housing and for other accommodations that will address the critical need to provide more lodging for temporary workers, students, researchers, and others. During the public hearing, there were no immediate abutters to such parking that objected to the proposal, rather concerns that the applicant is proposing to mitigate. The redevelopment will advance a number of purposes enumerated by the zoning bylaw, including encouraging housing for persons of all income levels and conserving the value of land and buildings and to prevent blight. Further findings that are specific. The planning board has found that the site is adequate, that it's suitable, that the impact on traffic flow and safety is acceptable, the impact on neighborhood visual character, there is no impact on that, that both the sewage disposal and the adequacy of utilities is found to be adequate and meets what the bylaw requires. The effect of the proposed project on the adequacy of supply of affordable housing, it will have a positive benefit to the affordable housing in the town. The applicant is proposing that 7 units will meet the affordability requirements as set forth in the mixed commercial and residential overlay district that will make them eligible for inclusion in the Executive Office of Housing Livable Communities subsidized housing inventory, which is how we keep track of, are we meeting the goal that the state wishes us to reach, that we're trying to reach. Therefore, given the above and conditions to be imposed below, the planning board finds the application for a special permit to allow parking within 5 feet of a property line will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of this chapter, and the proposal will not have adverse effects which overbalance its beneficial effects on either the neighborhood or the town. We have put on this on this approval standard conditions, but also a couple of that are specific to only this property. The applicant shall provide an on-site property management service, who will be responsible for all aspects of the property and, importantly, all parking enforcement on the property. All construction operations for the on-site work shall be maintained on the property, including but not limited to materials storage, construction vehicles, and contractor parking. And we would ask for the full finding to be in the record. Moving on. Next.
We need to take a vote.
Oh, we should vote. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot that. So, second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Galasso, I think that the planning board has finished with your project. It took a while, but we got there.
Thank you all very much, appreciate it.
And thank you. A minute for those who came for that purpose to leave.
I don't think I took one. Can you grab one for me? I didn't take one. Sorry. Apologize.
It says it's about there.
Conservative.
Next on our agenda, Jeffrey Nickerson for Conserve Group Incorporated, a special permit application to allow parking within 5 feet of a property line at 71 Technology Park Drive, formerly known as 81 Technology Park Drive. Mr. Nickerson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening. My name is Jeff Nickerson. I represent Woods Hole Land Holdings, LLC, the owner of 71 Technology Park Drive. I'm joined this evening by David Aubrey, the manager of Woods Hole Land Holdings. The board will remember this project, formerly as 81 Technology Park Drive. Through the course of several hearings before this board, a new address has been issued at 71. That address was issued on the 9th of August. Our proposal is to construct a municipal police training facility at 71 Technology Park Drive. It will be operated by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We're here to request a special permit for parking within 5 feet of a lot line pursuant to Falmouth Code 240-14.1 I-52. As I mentioned, the board is familiar with this project. It's in a light industrial B zone. The lot in question is 134,586 square feet of land. It's in the Coastal Pond Overlay District and in the Wildlife Corridor Mitigation Area. The approval not required plan for this project was approved on May 23rd by this board. It was endorsed, I should say. By that endorsement, 2 lots were created. The board might recall Parcel A on that plan is shown in this area and is the site of an existing office building which will remain. That will be 81 Technology Park Drive. 71 is on Parcel B, as it was shown on that approval not required plan. And Parcel B, Lot 70, or number 71, is 3.09 acres of land. That's where the new police training facility will be. The site plan approval for this project was issued by the board on August 8th, 2023. As I mentioned on August 9th, this parcel, Parcel B, was identified to be number 71 Technology Park Drive by the engineering department. The use, again, will be a municipal police training facility operated by the Commonwealth. The structure is to be a two-story building with a full basement, 28,681 square feet of area. The parking for this use will be 64 parking spaces located roughly to the south of the building. We're here tonight because of the proximity of this parking to the lot line. The board might recall from the site plan hearing that the reason for the location of this parking field as shown is we're trying to respect this wildlife easement area. There's a very large wildlife easement to the far east side of this site. The topography also speaks to why we want to maintain the parking in this area, because there are some severe topographical features right on the borders of this site. So by maintaining and locating the parking in this area, we minimize the disruption of the site for earth-moving purposes. I should note for the board that there is going to be one parking spot which will go just a bit over the line. I'm trying to zoom in so it's easier to see for the board. There we go. This parking spot right here will go just over the line. As I mentioned, the entire site is owned by Woods Hole Land Holdings, limited liability company. We can grant an easement for that so that there will be no question about the overlap. I should point out that there's going to be some lighting. There'll be one light pole here and another one further down in the parking area. Certainly the board's intent is always to try to maintain any artificial lighting to be on the site. In this case, we see the lighting on that property line is beneficial to both areas because it can provide for lighting for both parking for 81 and for 71. And again, because we own both parcels, we can grant an easement so there won't be any future confusion or concern about the lighting for the site. Stormwater infrastructure is to be added to the new site, and that's detailed in the stormwater plan that has been submitted to the engineering department. The engineering department is in the process of reviewing that in hopes of hopefully we will see a stormwater permit that will be issued soon by the engineering department. Our engineer at McKenzie Engineering is working on that plan with them. There is to be a shared septic system on this site. The shared septic system will be located between the two buildings. Again, to the extent that any easements are necessary, we're able to facilitate that. The shared system will serve both 81 and the new building at 71. That application is currently in front of the health staff, and we're working with health staff, and hopefully we'll have that system approved very soon. A shared system is permitted by DEP regulations. There is no special relief that's required by the health board or by the state to allow a shared system. Access for the site is over the 20-foot existing driveway at the northwest section of the lot, as shown here. That's an existing driveway. The fire department, through the site plan review process, had no concerns about that access. We estimate, based on the ITE tables, to be approximately 200 vehicle trips per day for this use to and from the site. But again, Falmouth Code 240.14.1I5 only allows parking within 5 feet, as we've shown on this proposed plan, by special permit at the discretion of the planning board. It's our strong feeling that the board should issue this special permit, that there will be no adverse effects by the issuance of the permit. The benefits by granting the permit would strongly outweigh any negative results or consequences. The adequacy of the site is completely appropriate. It's over 3 acres, which is more than sufficient to support a 28,681 square foot building, along with parking and open space. The site is suitable for the use. This is in the technology park, and we feel it's an ideal location for the police training facility. The impact on traffic flow and safety, again, we've looked through the ITE tables, and we think that the number of trips are about 200 a day, and we don't have any concerns from our fire department with the design. Impact of neighborhood visual character, the building is going to be set back from Technology Park Drive, and we're going to maintain vegetative buffers on 2 sides, so there will be no negative impact on neighborhood views and vistas. Adequacy of the method of sewage disposal, again, we've submitted that application to the Health Department, and we expect to get a positive determination on that. Adequacy of utilities to the site, the utilities are adequate both for electricity as well as telecommunications. The effect of the proposed supply of affordable housing, this has no effect of affordable housing in town. It is an office use in the technology park, no residential component whatsoever. Decision of the site plan, decision of the planning board under site plan review, again, it was issued on August 8th positively, and we appreciate that, and we hope that this request is further to that plan exactly. This proposed plan is an exact update to that plan. The only change from the plan that was shown and approved by the board on the 8th is an update to the address of 71 Technology Park. We believe that the project fully complies with all other aspects of the bylaw, and I welcome the opportunity to answer any questions the board might have about the proposal.
Is there anyone else here who'd like to comment on the application?
We have notices.
No? Paul, the notices?
There it is. Yep. Notice that the public hearing was published on August 11th, 2023, and 12 abutters were notified by regular mail.
Okay, if there's no one else who wishes to speak on it, we'll close the hearing. Pat,
I move that this hearing be closed.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone on the board want to comment on the matter?
No, I just think it's a great project, and to have something like parking delay it even further, I think is ridiculous. So I'd like to see this move forward.
Anyone else wish to speak on it?
I agree. It's got the same ownership, so there's no harm with right up against the line.
And Bambi has its way, you know. So.
Right, and it does serve a really useful purpose, protecting that corridor. Paul?
I think it's the kind of project, needs to happen in Tech Park. There's a lot of space up there. And I think there should be more emphasis on build out and using the space up there. It's a good use of the property.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So thank you for that. At our direction, the planning department has already prepared a draft motion, which once again, I'm going to abbreviate in reading, and ask that the entire motion be in the record. Move that the planning board vote to approve the application of Conserve Group Incorporated under Article 14 General Regulations and grant a special permit pursuant to Section 240-14-115A of the zoning bylaw to allow parking within 5 feet of a property line as part of the construction of a 2-story, 28,681 square foot building for use as a municipal police training facility located at 81 Technology Park Drive. I think that, 271, it's been corrected. 271, and that is the correction. The actual address, 271 is 71 Technology Park Drive. And it goes on to describe the actual plan. On the findings, most of the findings apply to the permit already given. The one that deals with the parking, altogether, the proposed plan includes a total of 64 parking spaces that comply with Section 240-14.1 of the zoning bylaw. 3 of the 64 are accessible spaces that conform to the requirements set forth by the Massachusetts Architectural Access Board, and then a site is given for that. Further findings. The planning board finds that the site is adequate and suitable for the proposed use, that the impact on traffic flow is acceptable, the impact on the neighborhood visual character. It has no impact on the visual character, including views and vistas, although it's a very good-looking building, so if it did have, it would be positive. That the sewerage and utilities are adequate. The effect of the proposed project doesn't apply to affordable housing. Therefore, given the above and the conditions to be imposed below, the planning board finds the application for a special permit to allow parking within 5 feet of a property line will be in harmony with the general purposes and intent of this chapter, and that the proposal will not have an adverse effect which overbalances its beneficial effects on either the neighborhood or the town. And then the conditions that the board is placing on this are the standard conditions, and that if any one of them is not quite standard, the applicant shall record easements for the parking areas and lighting, which are located over the property lines of the two lots, and shall provide copies of which the planning department prior to the issuance of occupancy permits. So, hearing the motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And it's done.
Madam Chairman, I just have a question. Have we, I'm fine with it too, I'm not objecting to it, but we used to have a policy that we didn't approve things on the same night we hear. So we've abandoned that and moved forward with this new policy.
No,
I
that is
never
not
heard any
correct.
formal discussion.
This is not a policy. This is an exception being made because I think the board was in agreement.
I know, we just did the last one too. I thought we used to have a policy that we didn't do it.
Jim, we did, but I think the exception on both of these is that we've heard so much already. And I think all of our questions have
okay.
been
I
asked.
just wanted to know
So
what
I
the
don't think
policy
we've changed our policy.
No, we didn't change
So-
it, and we discussed it at our last meeting, but we were going to do that in this meeting.
It just seemed different to me. I'm fine with it.
Okay.
I just noticed a change, and it's fine. If it's not a change, I'm okay with it either way. Let's move this ahead.
Not intending to change the policy.
Thank you.
I think it's possible to have exceptions. Thank you. Okay. Next, we have a public meeting. The applicant is Monique Cachadorian. Monique, a site plan review application to construct a detached accessory apartment at 62 Old Bayberry Lane, and this is the first time we've heard this.
Madam
So-
Chair.
Yes. Paul?
Notice the public hearing of this site plan review was published on August 11th, 2023. 26 abutters were sent notices by regular mail.
And I guess we have the abutters here. So, Monique, you want to explain your project?
Yeah, sure. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Board. My name is Monique Cachadorian, and I'm here as the applicant on behalf of the homeowner to present to you our proposed detached apartment on 62 Old Bayberry Lane. You've already mentioned I'm here to give a brief description of the project, which I will do. So, first of all, the lot, 62 Old Bayberry Lane sits on 48,700 square feet, which is over an acre. The primary existing house is a 3-bedroom house with a 4-bedroom septic. The proposed dwelling will be a single-bedroom dwelling and tie into the existing septic system. The apartment will have parking for 2 cars. It is proposed to be 768 square feet, which is 39.5% of the primary dwelling if we use 100% of the first floor square feet as the area for the second floor. And we can get into that later. Lastly, it's worth noting that the 2 structures are about 100 feet apart from each other, but we're still working and intend on keeping the architectural cohesion of the 2 properties. The properties will have clapboard on the front elevation, just like the main house does, and the side and the sides and rear elevations will have white cedar shingles consistent with the main house. And the main house has mostly double-hung windows, so we are using those in the proposed unit. So that's my description, but if anybody has any questions that I can answer, I'm willing.
I just have a question. I hear the conversation about the measurement. What is the, what do the assessors have, the square footage of the existing dwelling? And are we modifying that for this, and why?
So we typically don't use the assessor's information for the accessory apartments. We rely on the applicants drawing their floor plans, and we rely on photographs that they provide to us. The assessor's office has routinely indicated that square footage should not be relied on for their records.
What is the roof design of the existing property? I mean, we do this all the time when we talk second story and a half. Is it a colonial shaped building? That's a cape. So how much of that second floor is actually usable for building purposes wise? Like if, for instance, if the building department, if you wanted to finish the second floor, you can only use, I guess it's a half story, but anyways, it's 1.5 story building we're talking about. What we're counting as a 2-story building for the purpose of this application. That's what's going on.
Yeah, so unless the applicant
That's
would like
fine,
to
if that's
address
our
it.
new policy, I'm fine with it. But we're now calling it a 2-story building, even though it's a 1.5 stories.
It's not our new policy at all. I don't know why my mic is doing that.
Well, it
It's
is
not a
a-
new policy. There's a reason that this application specifically and uniquely is being seen this way.
I know, but when we look at a 2.5 story structure, we limit their use of the 3rd floor all the time on the roof level, on the roof design. We're just saying we're not taking into account for this particular application. We don't care about the shape of the roof.
Rather than repeating that, listen to their explanation of the thinking in approving it. Go ahead.
So the first floor of the house has a garage, which we do not count. So the first floor is a certain measurement. However, the second floor has habitable space over the garage. So it's bigger than the,
So you're counting that?
correct.
Okay.
You're making my job very easy over here. Thank you, I appreciate it. So just a brief description of the square footage situation is the exterior square footage from the outside, which is how you determine based on the bylaws your square footage limit, is 971 square feet. Ignore the 978 because Jed gave it a second look and found it to be 971. So that's the square footage that I'm applying for the first floor. Now, as Melinda had mentioned, the first floor has a garage, so there's no habitable space there. So we're in a unique situation where the second floor has habitable space above the garage, making the second floor more than 3/4 the size of the first floor, which actually ends up being about 87% of the first floor in size. So the way that I interpreted this, and again, absolutely for the board to decide if acceptable or not, but figured it was worth a shot to present my case to you, is the second floor being 87% of the first floor is more than 3/4. Per the bylaw, a 3/4 story gets a factor applied to it of 90%. So I applied 100% because I have more than 3/4 story on this property.
Okay,
You follow that?
I do.
So you have no problem?
I have no problem with it.
Excellent. Would you like to show us the elevations of what you're planning
Yes.
to build?
Yep. So again, as I had mentioned, front elevation is anticipated to be made out of the clapboard siding, consistent with the front elevation of the main house, and the sides and the rear will be white cedar, consistent with the main house. So that's the elevations, and if you want to see the floor plan.
Floor plan?
So single bedroom, pretty basic layout.
You're saying it's a single bedroom, and I understand that the second room there
Yep.
is labeled as an office. But
Computer room
that
office,
could
yeah.
readily be labeled as a bedroom. They're identical in size, and each has its own door.
Well, it's a cased opening.
Excuse me?
It's a cased opening.
It's more than 3 feet. It's open. It doesn't have a
Oh.
door.
Yeah.
Privacy, to be a bedroom, you need
Yeah.
a private door.
And so where that comes into play is with, obviously, wherever your jurisdiction is, but mainly with Scott at the Health Department. And I'd like to just mention that I've provided this plan and the site plan to Scott, and he has approved it, preliminarily approved it, based on the idea that the main house has 3 bedrooms, which it does, and that this has a single bedroom, which it does. The computer room has a cased opening, making it not a bedroom in Scott's opinion.
Agreed.
Any comments from
That's limited by the septic system capacity. I
Correct.
see.
There is a 4-bedroom septic system, and the main house has 3 bedrooms. So it actually worked out that we can give 1 bedroom here and tie into the existing septic system. So in total, on the lot, as it is proposed on the site plan, 4 bedrooms, which is the limit according to Title V and to, I think, your bylaw.
Yeah.
Right, 1 per 10,000 square feet.
Comments?
Excellent project.
Fine project.
Thank you.
Right. And would ask for a motion for our next meeting. And the date of that meeting will be,
September 12th.
and given that there are no questions, you don't really have to come back for that. It would be
Okay.
pro forma, but you could.
I might.
You might, yes. But if you're going to speak, you have to come forward.
Oh, sure.
And give your name, please.
Hi, I'm Diane McElroy. I just live next door, so I just wondered, is this going to be for an additional family, or?
Yes.
So I will say that it's fully within the right, based on the bylaw, to be for a separate family, I believe. However, the intention, as of it stands right now, is the homeowner is engaged, and his fiance has 2 daughters, a 16-year-old and a 24-year-old. 16-year-old's gonna go in the main house with the husband and the wife, and we intend on having the 24-year-old building this for the 24-year-old so she can have her own private space. Consistent also with the bylaws, having a younger population around here, which being a younger person, I can appreciate. So that's the plan for right now.
I totally have
Yeah.
3 that I'm trying to push.
Exactly.
Excuse me, if you're going to speak, you have to come and speak into the
sorry.
microphone.
So this doesn't have anything to do with this. This is just a general question to the board. Is there an application process for getting our road paved, or anything that would make it easier for in and out access? This is probably something that's been asked a million times, but just because I was caring for someone and we needed an ambulance down.
There's a waiting list.
Okay.
And you can join that list. Who do you see?
You can call the planning office and I
Okay.
can help you.
Okay, all right, thanks. Thank you.
Okay.
We're all set on that? Okay, now, time for our planning board discussion. The first thing on the planning board, the thing that Bob questioned much earlier, determination of access for David Zenger at 0 Beagle Lane. Deb?
So, thank you, Madam Chair. In your packets, you should have a letter from Mr. Zenga asking for the board to
He's recusing himself. John is.
Oh, right.
asking for the board to consider determination of access. For those of you who remember, a determination of access is required when an applicant is seeking a building permit and the frontage that they have along a way is not a public way or a way created under subdivision control. Beagle Lane is a way that was that existed prior to subdivision control in town. And so this determination of access is your process by which you provide an opinion letter to the building commissioner in support of a building permit, indicating your opinion of the suitability of the grades, the width, and the construction of said way. So this process is, again, discussion for the board, and we have visited the site, staff has visited the site several times. We conferred with the fire department as well as the engineering department, and we've drafted created a draft letter for your consideration for tonight.
The letter that I have is to the chairperson from David Zenger. I don't see a letter that would then...
It's the next.
Aha. Okay. Bob, do you want to read this?
Oh.
Oh, here.
Okay. From Gary Street, Building Commissioner, regarding determination of access, 0 Beagle Lane, applicant David Senga. Dear Gary, at its meeting of August 29, 2023, the Planning Board voted that access to the above referenced parcel would be satisfied if the following conditions are filled. 1, the applicant shall clear Beagle Lane of trees and brush up to a width of 18 feet and a height of 13 feet 6 inches from the intersection of T-Ticket Highway, Route 28, across the entire length of Beagle Lane, 2, and including the above referenced parcel's frontage. 2, this decision is not to be construed as a determination that the applicant has the right to enter onto Beagle Lane to make the above improvements. 3, this determination under the zoning bylaw is not a finding that with the above improvements, the property is eligible for an approval not required endorsement under Section 81 PC 41 GL for the creation of an additional building lots. 4, the Planning Board recognizes the potential for additional homes along Beagle Lane. Therefore, this determination applies to parcel 3923-014-003 only. The Planning Board may require future applicants to undertake additional improvements to Beagle Lane to ensure safety and adequate access. Sincerely, Jed Cornock.
That will be from you.
It will be. provided that you're okay with that and that you vote in the affirmative.
I'm fine with it.
I have a question. Item 1 says clear the trees from Route 28 along the entire length of Beagle Lane.
To the subject property.
Sorry?
I think it goes on to say to the subject property, not the entire length.
Well, it says
Yeah.
from Route 28 across the entire length of Beagle Lane, to and including the above referenced parcel frontage. So he's responsible for taking it all the way out to 28.
Yep.
And that's a burden we're putting on him that is a benefit for the other residents in that area.
Well, it happens to be a short distance on Beagle Lane because he goes from the beginning of, he has to pass in front of one other lot that's on the corner on the right, and then it's the lot in question. So it may sound like a long distance, but it isn't.
It's nothing compared to what we did on Lewis Neck and all the other
Right.
things. It's like,
So what,
it's a very, very small amount.
But there's a lot of things there, people with cats and so forth are all in there, and they've been benefit by this as well.
well, good for them, but they're beyond, yeah, they are slightly beyond this lot and on the other side of the street. These are the requirements we've had for other similar situations, the 18 feet, the 13 feet. It happens on that particular road, there is nothing up here. It's just, you know, a field over here, and they don't have to do that. And there's very little clearance that needs to be done. It's
Yeah,
pretty
as
clear
I've driven the
already.
street, I don't think we're talking about hardly anything.
Right, so we're just, the effort
I don't
here
even-
and the
I don't even
language
see it.
is what we've done in other circumstances, and because it's a short distance, it's not onerous. We've done onerous things, and we could, and we would to other people, but not this time.
We'd like not to, and we'd like not to continue to do that.
Well, I've been out there a couple of times, and I've driven down there. I don't remember looking at the trees to see what has to be cut at that time, but it seems like a long distance and an onerous requirement for this property owner to have to go from 28 all the way into his property, when the beneficiaries are the other
Well,
homeowners.
I don't know what else to
Yeah,
say.
we don't have a choice. We can't make the other people do it.
Right.
I'm just raising the
I know,
issue
I know,
so
it's a valid point,
we
but I
know
don't
what
think.
we're doing with this agreement.
But
I hope that we know,
this
one
condition.
person's onerous is another person's not so bad.
Well,
And
hopefully there's not that many trees.
Well, also, it appeared that the neighbors were welcoming of him, so perhaps they'd like to kind of help. I'm just saying that. I don't know whether they will or not, but it
Is
seemed
what
like they were
needs to be
welcome.
cleared within the road layout.
Exactly.
So,
But it also, our agreement also says that we're not determining whether he has the right to do it or not. That's up to him.
Right.
Because he has to, this is the same thing, we have to do this, Paul, on every time we do one of these things. There's no other alternative.
It's a private road.
I just think we should discuss it before we approve it. That's all
Well,
I'm
we
saying.
are.
I'm not opposed to doing it. I just think it's a pretty onerous condition.
What would be the solution to your objection?
Well, I don't know if the homeowners association there or not, but others would have to be involved in it. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just
No,
saying
I'm
we
just
should
wondering
discuss it.
what we could do to solve this issue.
I don't think we can change
I don't
the
think we
issue. I
can.
think we can just reflect on what's been said and call the motion.
I think we can vote it, and it's up to them whether it's too onerous for them or not. Whether they can work with the other residents to make their dream happen.
Any other comments? It's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
So please send the letter. Yeah, the next two things are something, I don't know if anyone else ever, they were new to me, so I had to get a little tutorial on it. This is removal of shade trees.
Oh, yeah.
Right, in two places. One on Old Main Street, in front of a project that we've seen recently, where they were putting condominiums in a wing behind an older house, and that older house has a big tree in front of it. And the other is on Elm Street. You wanna- Could you give the whole board the same tutorial? What is our involvement with shade trees?
So, generally speaking, the board has authority over scenic roads. Scenic roads were designated by action of town meeting, and any work that occurs within or on a scenic road that involves cutting of shade trees or moving stone walls requires the planning board to hold a public hearing. That's your involvement with shade trees specifically. This is sort of a two-part process because the tree warden received requests to cut shade trees for other reasons that you would be traditionally involved in under a scenic road policy, if you will. And that specifically relates to, in a scenic road, anytime someone is proposing to do road work, repair, reconstruction, or any sort of work within the road layout that would affect a stone wall or a shade tree, then you would hold a hearing and you would issue a decision. In this circumstance, no one is actually doing any work or work within the road layout. They're simply asking for shade trees to be removed because of other reasons. And those two
Make the
reasons are-
driveway safe, basically.
Correct.
You can't, you'd have to pull out right next to a tree. I looked at the pictures, it was really
Well,
clear.
I drive down that road 2 or 3 times a day, and this property actually has one of the better sight lines on that street. If you take that tree down, you also have to take the telephone pole, because right next to it is a telephone pole. So taking the tree down isn't going to affect the line of sight.
The one
On Elm.
Is
On
it?
Elm, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. And like I said, it has one of the better sight lines on that street.
We're talking about North Main Street?
No, we're talking about Elm.
where's the telephone?
Elm.
pole?
I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about North Main Street. I'm on the wrong property.
No, we weren't clear about which one we were talking about. Okay, Main Street is being recommended to be removed because the tree has been harmed.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the second one. Main Street, Old Main Street, the tree is ready to go, and it's going to get worse because of the construction.
Yeah.
Right, so that's understandable. This one.
This one, the
Elm
tree is
Road
healthy.
Is less understandable. It does block a sight line of people trying to get out of a driveway, but what has been pointed out is, as soon as you take out the tree, then you're coping with the telephone pole.
Yeah. And from where that picture is taken, it doesn't give you a real true sight line.
No, it does not.
Because I pulled in there and backed out of it, and
I'm sorry, I was addressing the North Main
We're
Street
getting
one.
better visuals up here.
Yeah, Bob, I think I see what you're referring to.
Yeah.
I believe this is the driveway in
that's the
question.
driveway there.
And so if you sort of move up a little bit, you can see the telephone pole
Yeah.
directly behind it.
And it's
What's
one
the
of the
subject tree you're talking about?
This one here, I believe.
and it's one of the straighter runs on that road,
Yeah, so,
I
Ted,
think in the picture
where is
you-
the driveway?
down the
Driveway's
road.
here.
Yeah.
The tree is way far away from the driveway.
Yeah, it's not that, it's right, not right on the corner of the driveway either.
No, it isn't.
So if you refer to the picture in your packet, I believe this fence is in that picture,
Yeah.
is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I think what the applicant is saying is when they're attempting to pull out here, and they're looking, if I can, down the road, this is an obstruction, and they can't see vehicles coming down the road. And I think to Bob's point is, if they were to cut it down, they would have to also relocate a telephone pole.
why is there a telephone pole? Telephone poles aren't usually,
It's to support the other pole.
Support,
They
yeah,
put them
it's
in so it doesn't fall down. They just tie it across. It's just meant to hold that one
And
pole.
if you drive down that entire road, you'll see driveways that are on corners, that have huge bushes on the corners.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, this is probably the straightest run, and probably the, I mean, compared
If you would take a
to the
left-
driveway I pull out of every day, this
If you would
is-
take a left, where you see right there, you go up a block, you'll see a telephone pole in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this might articulate the issue as well. I mean,
Yeah.
as you're driving down this way, this vehicle coming out of the driveway is, it can't see the vehicle coming down the road. So I think that's why the applicant's asking for
Yeah,
it.
I understand that, but I say you can see it. I mean, if you want to uplift the limbs or something, you can see around a tree like that. I mean, if it was a big, huge rhododendron or something, I could understand it, but
Sure.
I can't see taking a healthy tree down when it, to my mind, having driven down that road numerous times, that the sight line on most of those houses, because it is a scenic road, aren't any better. In fact, most of them are much worse than that. And certainly much better than a lot of places that I have to pull out of.
any other reactions? Paul?
Yeah, I noticed the opinion from the tree warden is not there. He said the tree's in good standing condition, but he gave no opinion. The previous one, he had an opinion.
That's a good observation, thank you.
He does say that after review, it is apparent that the tree and other vegetation obstruct a vehicle
Trees
from
in good
safely
standing
exiting.
health and structure.
Could you hear me?
Not quite.
Okay. In his referral or his synopsis, he does say, after review of this request, it is apparent that this tree and other vegetation obstruct a vehicle from safely exiting the driveway of this residence.
I'd like to point out, he says this tree and other vegetation.
Yeah.
So removing this tree isn't going to improve other vegetation from blocking the site.
Jen,
And you could take
click-
out the fence and the bushes.
Could you click the mouse
as well,
directly
you know?
in front of the tree?
Yeah, I can
Right
try.
there. That's, I'm trying to see what Bob's saying, where the telephone pole is.
Yeah,
So
right
that's
there.
right there. He's saying the telephone pole and the tree are the same radius, basically, within this, is that what your
Let's
point
see if I
is?
can get a
They're the
little.
same distance from the road and in line with
Okay.
one another.
I was just trying to understand what he was saying. Now I see it.
John?
I think regarding this application, maybe we should take it up the next meeting and we all have a chance to go look at it on our own.
I think that's the best
Because
thing to do.
We're just looking at a
Yeah.
map here.
I tried to
Let's
drive
go-
by
let's
there,
go-
but I
Let's
couldn't
go look
see
at
it.
it, then we can give a good decision next time.
Okay, but we can talk about the Old Main one now.
Yeah.
If I may, so there is one issue with that. The tree warden and the board is having a public hearing at the Board of Selectmen's meeting on September 11th. Your next meeting would be September 12th. So that timing doesn't work.
Well, he could
You could also delay.
delay to another meeting with the selectmen regarding that one tree.
Okay.
They've been living with this situation for a long time. It doesn't seem to be an urgent decision.
Okay.
Does it?
I just haven't seen it, and I don't want to make it, I don't want to vote until I've
Yeah.
actually seen it.
Sure.
Just vote with me, John.
I've heard that before.
I'm good with delaying it. I think it's important. It is one of our most scenic streets in town, and we need to be careful.
Yeah, in fact, this is the worst-looking photo I've ever seen of Elm Road, because it points out all those.
Well, this is
telephone
Google
poles.
Maps, right?
Right.
This is a truck driving down, taking thousands of pictures.
Yeah,
Yeah, the imagery looks like it's from 2011, so a little dated.
okay, so let's have a motion on the Old Main Road one.
I move that we accept the tree warden's opinion and that that tree should be removed.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Goes the Old Main Tree. And we, I don't think we need a motion to delay. No, we'll delay.
So it just gets added to the agenda.
Yes, thank you.
I think if I may, perhaps a motion to ask staff to submit a letter to the tree warden indicating your preference to have more time to look at the possibility of this tree being removed and to perhaps delay the hearing if possible. And if perhaps we can draft some other language, if the hearing is not possible to delay, perhaps some language that indicates your preference for the tree to be kept in some way. That way we don't miss an opportunity to provide comment at a public hearing that's going to happen on the 11th.
That sounds like the more complete thing. So moved. Is there a
Second.
second? All in favor of taking that route?
What was it?
A better letter, that a letter is sent to the tree warden explaining what we're doing and giving them an option for getting a different motion from us on a annual basis.
I see
Same
this,
effect.
Okay.
I see the solution as moving the fence back.
I don't think it's enough of a problem to solve it
I still
myself.
say
is
I
my
want to
only-
go
Right.
look at it.
Yeah.
Right.
I want to
and
make an informed decision, really.
Well, I think that's our use of the delay. So it's up to each one of us to go. It's 129 Elm?
196.
196, rather.
196. Never get it right. 196,
You
which you
can't miss
cannot
it.
see the number from the street.
You don't need to, you'll see the fence.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, this little fence here and this fence
Right,
here.
all that grass. Where's that street coming in right across the street from it?
Over here?
Yeah.
Well, that's a
Katie
secret,
Hatch, Moreland Road.
secret neighborhood up
Oh,
there.
it's right at the.
That goes Moreland Road
Go
up to
back
Katie
to the-
Hatch.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
And the craziest thing we have in our whole town, that very next intersection, has a telephone pole in the middle of the street.
Jed, go back to the map.
It's crazy.
So, what's that road?
Sorry.
Electric pole.
Yeah, it doesn't show.
Well, you're not on the right spot.
Oh, 259,
Wrong.
that's why.
I was getting confused, we're going North Falmouth,
Yeah.
downtown, back and forth.
So did we vote?
What's that?
Moreland Road.
I think we voted to send the letter that Jeb
Okay.
recommended that he's comfortable with, right?
Okay, thank you.
So just to reiterate, the letter will say something to the effect of delay if possible, and if not possible, save if possible.
Yes.
That be
So we're-
appropriate?
Yeah.
It's putting a stake in favor of saving the tree. John?
So does that mean that it could still go to the select board without our opinion?
Well, that would be your opinion. So that's the letter that you would give to the tree warden,
Well,
and they,
save if possible would be for every tree, but if our opinion is important, I think they should get our opinion.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
And you're not comfortable with the save the tree?
I don't mind saving the tree, but I don't want to mislead the selectmen that we think the tree should stay. Without looking at it, that's just how I feel about it.
I interpreted the language that if they're not willing to delay, then
Right.
you have to leave the tree alone. We'll go look at it, and we can talk to them more later.
If that's the way it is, I agree with that.
And
That's
someone
the
could
way I heard
reapply
it.
to have it taken down.
Okay.
very good.
Okay, so we're all gonna look at the tree. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Jim, are you raising your hand or
No.
just stretching? Okay. We're not done. Committee reports. Okay, Paul.
Yeah, I just have a comment. Last evening, the Select Board approved the recommendation of the Water Quality Management Committee to advise the state they're going to move forward with permit option for wastewater treatment, rather than use the second option, which is to install alternate systems throughout the impacted areas. So they voted in favor of doing that.
What does that mean for all the homeowners?
Well, means the town has to move forward, notify the state by January that they intend to do permitting. And they'll have to go in and do the permits for specific areas, and then see what the results are. The other option is all the homeowners would have the burden of building alternate systems, alternate innovative systems.
It lifts the burden off the homeowners.
So I think that's a good move. That's the recommendation of the Select Board, of the Water Quality Management Committee.
And did affordable housing do anything?
They're always doing something, but there is nothing that, other than we don't have a firm date yet, I don't think, for our meeting. You know, we want to have a symposium of some sort. We don't have a date for that
Not that I'm aware of.
yet. Not yet. We're getting there.
Yeah, since we're talking about affordable housing, I have a comment for future agenda items. I attended the Select Board meeting last night for a number of reasons, and at the beginning, there were at least 6 or 8 people that argued in favor of the need of affordable housing. That's obviously well known. There was an article in the paper, the new town manager supported not only the town planner, but also the housing coordinator in the way they were treated at the East Falmouth Village Association about 2 weeks ago. Both Bob and I were there. Frankly, I thought it was a disgrace.
Yeah.
It was not representative of Falmouth. At any rate, there's now an article in the paper that the Falmouth Housing Authority is going to set up a committee to look at the housing of their properties. Bob, for a long time, has said we should be looking at houses and redevelop the houses rather than start from scratch. I've mentioned several times we should look at the existing properties, which is apparently what they're going to do. But I'm curious what role the planning board might play in, aside from following that, in a study like that, because there's a lot of affordable housing properties in town. And one of the arguments I heard from people in East Falmouth particularly is they didn't want to be the dumping ground, quote unquote, for the rest of the town. And I find that very egregious and wrong. But more importantly, there's a number of things going on that impacts our ability to do certain things as planning board, and I think it's imperative that we have a discussion about housing. I understand the housing coordinator has a map showing all the different housing throughout all precincts. Well, that would be very nice, because the option, that was not understood at that meeting that we both attended. So I think maybe we should have a discussion, more detailed discussion on affordable housing, on what they're trying to do and what all these different committees are trying to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is when people hear affordable housing, they immediately link it with increased density, and they don't want that in their neighborhoods. And the route from East Falmouth, you know, I think that was a large expression of theirs. You know, you just want to dump it here, make the lots smaller, add more, and we won't get into.
And I want to commend both Jed and Kim for how they handled that. That was an ugly crowd. I was ashamed that the people of Falmouth came out like that. Not even giving people a chance to voice their opinion, I think was very disrespectful, and I thought Falmouth was better than that. So I commend you.
Thank you.
It's so wrong for a community or individuals within a community to attack members of the administration in any way, shape, or form, you know, who come. And I mean, I know what it feels like, because I used to do that for EPA. And when you feel ganged up upon, when you've come to give information that the community wanted, and, you know, if they had guns and knives, they would have brought them out.
Yeah.
It's just so wrong. And then they don't get the information that they need. You know, they just hear what they want to hear, and they get ugly. But I think there were some wonderful letters to the editor that smacked a few hands down, but it doesn't make up for what you guys had to go through.
If I could just, one other comment. I thought Eric Turkinson's column was very good also in the paper last week.
So we're going to have a discussion.
Well, we're getting to agenda items.
Yeah, for future agenda items.
I think we should talk about it in more detail.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you.
While we're on the subject of the selectmen's meeting, the part that I was interested in had dealt with the capital plan. And it's hard to tell what exactly was in the capital plan as far as sewering was concerned. But we all are aware that unless there's a lift station change, we're not going to be able, the town won't be able to develop all the land there that Kimco owns on Falmouth Plaza. Bundling all the sewer plans together, you couldn't tell. Do you have any insight into what's inside that capital plan?
I haven't seen the entire capital plan as of yet, but I've been extremely busy, so it's just.
Right, I wonder if
radar as of
maybe
yet.
you could look into that?
Yeah.
Does that section on sewering, it's quite a big sum of money. Does it include provision for the lift station, or at least part of it, so we might be sharing costs with the developer? Or what are the implications for the lift station from the approved about to be approved capital plan? Couldn't tell.
Yeah, I can take a look at it.
Okay, good. Any other committee reports? John, community preservation?
No, not yet.
No. I have a question for you, John, about community preservation. Once the Community Preservation Committee has funded a project, and that project is complete, down the road, the building, whatever they're funded, now needs something else. Will they reconsider it? Or is each one seen anew, or how do you handle that?
When you say building, could you be more specific? Like we do historic, we do.
Yes, historic. If it comes in under historic, as a couple of things I know about do, take Nobska, for example, where maintenance is going to be an ongoing issue, and because the light tower needs to be repainted every 5 years, it's a predictable kind of a problem, and it's very expensive. And community preservation paid the, completely.
I don't think maintenance is in our purview for CPC.
No. Okay. No.
There's a couple of items that we're not allowed to fund.
And no maintenance.
Because of the state.
Thank you.
Charge Toyota because they're using it in one of their ads.
I noticed that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wonder if they're paying for it.
Yeah.
No, you'd be amazed the number of businesses that do use that as their logo or icon in some way.
I should correct myself, in historic, we've done a lot of historic maintenance, like of old buildings where they need a new roof. We have funded that. I was thinking of recreation, but we've done a lot of historic structures.
Yeah, I thought so, West Falmouth.
Yes, we have.
You know, one thing that we tried to do, and this is a selectmen's, I don't know who, administration decision, when you buy something, like the lighthouse, there's a known figure that's going to be carried forward over the life of it for maintenance. And that was specifically brought up at, I don't know, one of the town meetings, and like the bicycle path. You can't say, okay, we did it, that's it, bye. And so I don't know that it was ever passed, but it should have been if it wasn't, that you have a lifetime line item in the budget for purchases by the town. And it was brought up. I don't know that it was passed. I think it was rather scoffed at. But I think that's a necessary thing that needs to be brought up with the administration, that if you're going to do something, you can't just do it and then let it decay.
That's way off our purview, but it's certainly
Of
an
course it is,
interesting
but
point.
Same
Right.
thing, I mean.
It is the same thing, thank you. Planning Department report.
We have one report, and hopefully everyone has seen it in their packets. We gave you all of the town meeting articles that you are bringing forward to a public hearing starting on September 12th. And so what I'll do is, for the folks who watch this video afterward or are watching at home, we've also posted them to the Planning Department's webpage. So if you go to Departments, go to Planning, right up at the top, there are 3 zoning articles which, as I mentioned, will go to town meeting this year or this fall, and we'll be discussing them in more detail at your next public meeting, which is on September 12th. Very quickly, Article 1 is fixing any of the errors and omissions that we found during the or post recodification. And Article 2 is moving accessory apartment language to its own section now. It'll have its own home. And Article 3 is handling the definitions and a different way of looking at them. So we'll get into more detail on the 12th of September, which is the next meeting.
Can you repeat the last thing you said? I missed something.
Definitions?
Is it Article 3? I mean,
Yeah, Article 3 is the definition. So, you know, without getting too far
it's
away.
definitions, okay. I just didn't hear the word definition. I'm
Yep.
all set.
Yep. Any, and that's it for Planning Department.
And that September 12th meeting will serve as a public hearing
Correct.
in preparation for town meeting, for the things that we will be bringing up at town meeting.
Right. And this year, town meeting is on November 13th, I believe. It's a Monday night.
Number 13?
November 13th, yep.
Okay,
That's all we
thank
have.
you. Now, for the next agenda, who'd it be? Well, Bob, did you want to make your proposal first?
Sure, that I would like to be able to have a discussion about the rail trail proposal for removing the rail spur. And my question would be, is that just going to be a closed discussion, or is that something that we would open up to the public? Because if we open up to the public, we know that there will be groups that will come to that, and that if that's the case, then there are groups that I would like to invite.
I don't know that anyone else in town is going to have that discussion. This is something, so we might want to, this is something that the legislature is doing. And I don't know that there'll be any other forum for public comment on that.
I just have a question. What's the outcome? Is this a discussion about the letter we're gonna write to recommend or not recommend? Because we really don't have a say in this.
Right.
It's just,
No, we don't.
it's how we're gonna draft our
Right,
letter. Okay,
right.
now I just wanted to
Yeah.
know why we're having a
Yeah,
discussion, so
yeah.
It's basically to draft a letter that we're gonna weigh in on one way or the other.
So if that's
Oh,
what,
okay, that gives it a shape.
Yes.
yeah, so if that's how it's proposed in the agenda, then it wouldn't be a hearing. It would just be
No,
a
yeah,
discussion
that's
amongst
that's
ourselves,
amongst ourselves.
just amongst ourselves with no public comment. Is that something we can do, or is that something we want?
Because it's really just our own internal letter. That's what
Yeah.
I'm getting at.
Yeah.
We're not, it's not
Yeah,
a
it's more,
bylaw, it's not something we're voting on, it's just a letter we're gonna write.
yeah, it's more for this board to decide if we want to endorse a letter to.
Okay, but then I have another question, Bob, because we don't have to have it as something that we, officially, we can just do a discussion.
That's
Right.
what, yeah.
Right.
That the public is invited to discuss, and we can be informed by their discussion perhaps even further. I don't know, I think it's
Well, the
just our
question
board,
is
really.
whether we're gonna have the public weigh in on our opinion or not.
That's the thing.
That's the,
And it's not a hearing if you do, if it's just discussion,
it's just,
that the public is invited to the discussion, but.
Okay, there are a couple of issues here. One is the use of the time of the planning board
Right.
for this issue in which we really don't have a clear purview to be involved. I mean, it's just aside from what we normally do,
Yeah,
other than being part of our
the local
local
comprehensive
comprehensive
plan.
plan.
Yeah,
So it's within that we might be making, but if we want actually to do something that would have an effect, it would have to be more than a discussion among the seven of us, because the legislature is ought to do this.
yeah.
how can we don't have any control over it, so it's just it's just our opinion. Hey, we think it's a good idea or a bad idea.
Correct.
Yeah.
That we, as the local comprehensive plan originators, would be saying this doesn't match our plan.
Right.
But it's mostly inborn, is the problem with it.
Yeah, but the train affects the whole Upper Cape.
It does, and the train comes into North Falmouth
Yeah,
on its way to Otis.
yeah. And I think losing that spur and losing the trash train essentially would have a huge impact on the Upper Cape and the environment on the Upper Cape. I mean, rail trail is the most efficient, cost-effective, and environmentally friendly way of transporting large amounts of freight and goods, period. I mean, like I said before, you take all those trash cars and you start loading that into trucks, you're gonna see a lot of truck traffic.
This is sort of a boundary issue. We're the planning board for the town of Falmouth, and we have boundaries on what we would be taking any kind of official action on, even if it's discussing a letter.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if it's within our boundaries.
I'm seeing something else. I really much would like to have the discussion amongst our board. It's not on the agenda, and I want to have it. I think it's important. I agree with Bob. I don't want to turn into a public hearing where all the pros and cons are coming
Yeah.
through, and we have 50 people trying
Yeah.
to tell us what we should think about it.
Yeah.
It's really just our opinion, and that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah.
I agree with you, Jim.
It's
our opinion based on what we have put into the local comprehensive plan.
So I
and
don't
how it
really want
affects
to have a
that.
public discussion on it. I'd like to have a planning board discussion on what we think as a board. and
Are
what-
we in agreement on that? Paul?
I think there's a couple of things here. I read the article that Bob referred to, and I thought it was misleading and inaccurate. There was another one that came out about leaving the tracks in place that I thought was fairly decent. But that didn't even mention the fact if there is a defense issue to get material and supplies to Otis, that might disrupt the area too. They didn't mention that, and I thought that was important. But what's going to happen is the Bike and Pedestrians Committee is very much in favor of putting that through, and they're pushing a lot of the efforts to build that extension. It's going to be very expensive because it has to be a bridge.
We shouldn't be
over the-
talking about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
So you're going to get
We're going
into...
too far on this.
You're gonna really get into Donnybrook, I think, if you open it up to all kinds of public comment.
And the key point is really just our one letter. We don't have a say in this, except for the one letter, and I don't think we have to make it a huge public issue to write a letter.
Yeah.
Correct.
A lot of people listen to our meetings, too.
But the letter should go to our legislators who
Yeah.
have a say in this.
Okay,
All right,
so we're gonna
we'll have a discussion.
have a discussion about a letter, but also, we're going about affordable housing. We're going to ask if we could have a presentation of a map of the location of affordable housing because our question is affordable housing in Falmouth reasonably evenly distributed among all the villages in town? That's our question. So we'd like to see a map about that.
Sure.
And I think there probably is one. I don't think you have to make it up.
There is one. In fact, we had it at the Emeralds, the public meeting that we had.
Anybody look at it?
Properties. I saw a couple of people look at it.
Just keep in mind that when the affordable housing, because so much of it is 40B, that there are restrictions on 40B in terms of access to libraries, schools, walkability to jobs. And it isn't just, could you put it in North Falmouth, West Falmouth? It isn't. There are other issues that have to be part of that discussion.
Absolutely, and they would be when we're looking at the map. I think the map will just ground the discussion in a fact base.
Okay. We can add it to the agenda. Sure.
Okay, that's good. Anything else for the agenda for next time? Other than whatever business
I was
is?
going to mention, the report on the affordable housing report done a few years ago with, I can't think of a name right now.
Kingfish. Oh, no, the person before.
Yeah, it would be very helpful to have that available too.
It's all being updated.
Yeah,
We
but
finished.
I thought that was well done.
Oh, very well. It
Carla
was.
Fioroni was
There it is,
was responsible for that with a consultant.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was a pretty good report.
It was a very fine report.
Are you talking about the housing production plan?
Yes,
What's being updated?
the housing production plan, because
Who's
it's
doing it?
expired.
We have two consultants, Horsley Witten Group and Barrett Planning Group.
Oh, Barrett's the one who did the last one, right?
I think it was Carol Suttenberg. I never
That
remember
was one
the
individual, yeah.
last name.
Judy Barrett or something.
So what's the schedule for doing that?
It's immediate. We're already working on it.
Well, should we wait to have the discussion until that's finished, if it's
They'll
coming
be
on the meeting?
They'll be reaching out shortly, and one of the elements, we just had our kickoff meeting very recently, so one of the items that we discussed was, them potentially coming, or at least having a discussion with the board, because ultimately the board votes approval of the HPP, Housing Production Plan, which then goes to the select board, and then it gets voted to go to the DHCD, which is now.
Perhaps we should wait until the draft is available and use that as the basis for the discussion.
No, I think what we're looking, I don't agree with that for the following reason. I think what we're reacting to is how the presentation was treated by the audience badly and maybe not factually, and that we want to be reacting on a timely basis to correct the record, really.
Well, why don't I do this? I can have a discussion with Ken Fish, our housing coordinator, and we can try to figure out what the best approach is, because we're on a tight timeline for the HPP. We may be able to couple those conversations together.
There's no harm in having two conversations about affordable housing.
Of course not.
And if what we have at our next meeting is a map looking at the distribution of affordable housing, we've laid the groundwork for this second discussion.
Yep.
Okay, before we adjourn, let me ask a question.
Yeah, I just got to follow up on that. I think it's important to have that discussion, but I don't think we should get into the issues of the East Falmouth Village Association. I thought that was addressed very successfully by the new town manager, and I don't think that's our place to get into the discussion of what happened at that particular
We
meeting.
certainly wouldn't. We are looking at the distribution of affordable housing.
That's only one item. There are other items we have to discuss too.
Yeah.
Like the status of the new report. Nobody know. I didn't know that. A lot of people probably don't know that, and I think that's important. But I'd rather not focus on what happened in
No,
East
I didn't think
Falmouth,
we were.
No, I
because
didn't
it's
either.
not necessary to do that. The town manager addressed it very effectively, and it's not our issue, in my opinion.
Before we leave, I want to ask the board a question. I tried out tonight a reduced size to what we read, and do you want to go forward in that vein so that we're reading very clearly what the motion is and where it is, only the parts of the findings that apply to that very motion, not the kitchen sink approach where you're making a complete record, and we're doing only then we say, given the above, this is what we're doing, it repeats the motion, and then it gives the reasoning. Do you want to go forward that way?
The only question I have is, are we within our rights to do that with the open meeting law?
Why not?
I don't know, because, you know,
Post the document 48 hours in advance.
you know.
It's commonly done in many places. They
Okay,
don't read the
okay,
whole
well, I'm
thing.
just asking the question.
I think Brian said we don't even need to read it. We just
Okay.
need to vote it.
Okay.
Need to vote it?
I just wanted to know if it's required of us to read everything into the record as opposed to
I
just.
think we solved this back when Tom was here, and then he left, and we had to start over.
Yeah.
I like it. I thought what you did was great.
I did too.
I think you could even do it faster.
No, she read what was necessary to read.
In future, the planning department will have done the full one that goes in the record, will have done the very abbreviated one that goes to a reader.
And just highlight
There
the
we are.
important
I was
stuff.
just gonna say, we could just do it in a different color.
Yes, just highlight it.
And you just read that.
And just read the highlighted ports and away we go.
Or we just
Whichever
have
way you
AI
find
read
it.
it.
It'd be easier to do it two
In
copies.
fact, Bob, you and I could go to the office ahead of time and see if we think they did a good job.
Yeah, okay.
Teacher's checking up.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All?
I'm 100% agree with you.
Made a motion to adjourn, you didn't hear me.
Oh.